Hey couples, it's Tracy and Brian here, and today's topic is intended to help you become more self-aware and strengthen your marriage, because we're going to talk about what's called attachment types. And we're going to introduce this image to you, the 4 different attachment types. This is something that's been around in psychology since the 1960s. Now, before we get into all of the details of those 4 different types, here's the big idea for today. Just like personality types or love languages, we all tend toward a particular attachment type. And in your marriage, being aware of your type helps you identify your default tendencies in times of stress and conflict, which of course happens all the time in marriage.
Yeah, so this is based on John Bowlby's research and attachment theory. And you see in those quadrants that we're measuring your level of anxiety internally and how you relate to others, and then the avoidance scale, again, how you push away people based on your internal mechanisms.
All right, so the healthiest attachment type is in the lower left corner, someone who has low avoidance and low anxiety, and this is the person that we just call secure. This is a person who's good at forming strong bonds, or who is comfortable with constructive criticism. This is someone who is task-oriented and gets the job done.
So if you think about it in your marriage, if you have a secure attachment, that likely means that in your earliest years of development, that your parental figures, your mom and your dad or whoever raised you, created an environment that you felt like you could trust that your needs would be met. So as you've developed into an adult and now in a marriage yourself and in relationship and connection with your spouse, a secure person doesn't fear if this person's going to abandon them, right? They come to the relationship with the ability to be free, authentic, not afraid to give their heart to their spouse, that when criticism comes, it doesn't just totally deflate their sense of self-worth, and just a general healthy way of relating in marriage. Now, again, I think it's important for us to establish that just because you have a secure attachment doesn't mean that you're perfect. It doesn't mean that you don't still have areas to grow, but you've been blessed by being raised and reared in an environment from your youngest age that you could make secure, confident attachments to others.
All right, the second attachment type is someone who has high avoidance and low anxiety. This is the avoidant person. They avoid close personal relationships. Usually they prefer to work alone. And this is someone who tends to question leadership.
So again, in marriage, avoidant people then have kind of a wall or kind of a space or boundary of how close they're comfortable with people getting to them. So if you're married to someone with an avoidant attachment, you probably feel that if you come on too strong, if you kind of invade that boundary line, that you might start to feel some pushback from your spouse. Well, that's because they have more of an avoidant attachment style, that they have a level of comfort level of how close they want people to get. So in marriage, that might feel like you have a spouse that would rather do things on their own. They kind of choose hobbies that are just for them, that they don't want to do as many things that are team sport related or in groups of people. This is more just doesn't make them bad people. It just means that their attachment style is a little bit more, I need my space. I'm not anxious. I just need my space. And I have boundaries that I need people to respect.
The third type is someone who has low avoidance and high anxiety. And this we just call the anxious personality. This is someone who is preoccupied with being accepted, someone who relies on others to complete tasks, and someone who needs constant affirmation in order to stay focused.
So this person is someone that probably was raised in a home where maybe the caregivers were a little inconsistent. Maybe sometimes they felt like they were safe in caring for them, and other times they felt like maybe their needs were unmet, perhaps emotionally. And so the anxious person is very driven by wanting to be accepted. They need to feel that high anxiety is that they want to be accepted by their spouse, by their friends, by coworkers. And they're likely not going to make a lot of decisions on their own. They're going to want other people to kind of affirm their choices before they do anything. They struggle a little bit more in the self-confidence realm. They're just very much dependent on being approved by others. Again, this doesn't make this kind of a person a failure in any way. It's just that attachment style is based more on anxiety, probably because of the environment in which they were raised, where they didn't have the freedom maybe to express themselves exactly the way they wanted. Maybe they had a caregiver that had maybe standards that were hard to meet, and so they just have more of an anxious attachment.
And then finally, we have the person who has high avoidance and high anxiety. And the word that we have for this is just disordered. This is someone who has a strong desire to be accepted, someone who has a strong desire to protect and to isolate, and also probably is a little inconsistent and tends to vacillate in relationship.
This is probably the temperament that has the least amount of research behind it, because it's kind of a combination of the anxious and avoidant. This is a person in attachment that kind of go between both. They really want to be accepted by others, but they also have a strong tendency to need to protect themselves. So again, probably from their earliest age, were raised in a home where there was some inconsistency in the way they felt safe and accepted by caregivers. And so this person just is maybe a little bit all over the map. So you might be married to someone that sometimes really seems to embrace close connection to you and other times is throwing up a wall, and it might just feel a little bit frustrating to you. So that's more of the disorganized, disordered attachment style.
Now, I'm sure as you listen to all of that, you were thinking about yourself and probably your spouse. Which one are you? An S, a V, an X, or a D? And here's really the big key takeaway for today. Again, being aware of your attachment type in marriage helps you identify your default tendencies in times of stress and conflict. But here's the point. Here's the good news. With practice, you can learn to overcome your default and become more secure in your interactions, right? That's what we all want to be. We want to be more secure. That lower left corner, that's the healthiest, most well-adjusted attachment type.
Yeah, these insights can be especially helpful the next time that you're in an argument with your spouse, that if you notice that they kind of get clingy to you or they put up a wall and push away, that simply could just be for you to utilize the attachment style and be like, okay, I know my spouse is a little bit more avoidant or a little bit more anxious. Instead of being annoyed by that, understand that. It helps you to be more empathetic and can help you move forward in conflict rather than letting that become something that's divisive.